literally for the first time in history. If you have $20 a month, you're able to do things that only gigantic companies would be able to do just by using ChatGPT.
All of this, just for context, would have never been possible pre-AI, because this is where true intelligence is being layered on top of the data that we're giving it.
I think so many people fail at trying to implement AI because
I'm Alex Lieberman, joined by my co-founder Arman Hazarkani. We're the co-founders of Tenex. We help companies go from AI apps into AI native, build custom solutions, and do enablement and trainings to train people on the technology that we built for them. You're probably wondering, why is he wearing this hat? I'll tell you why. I'm in New York City. It's like 30 degrees. I don't want to freeze my you-know-what off, but this isn't about me. It's about you. You have given us your time watching this video, and we wanted to make it as easy as possible for you. So we turned this whole episode into a playbook on our website. Just click on the link in the description, and you can get the whole playbook with prompts, with steps, all the details you need to apply this to your work. Check it out. The first thing that I'll say is, and this is something we say all the time at 10X, AI is an incredible technology, but it is just that, it is a technology. And when we think about technology, we think of technology as a tool that helps to solve human beings' problems. And that's also why we don't think AI is always the right solution. We think AI is a hammer. When you have a nail, it's great. When you have a screw, go get a screwdriver. And so the entire way I want to frame this conversation is around what is the problem we're facing at 10X? What is our hypothesis? And then how are we building solutioning to solve that problem? So the problem is very simple. We are in a client services business at 10X. We have several customers, and next year we will have even more than several. And Arman and I, as we grow our organization, we want to have a consistent pulse on the happiness of our customers. We want to have a pulse on how our customer success org and our strategists are working with customers. But the question is how do you do that as you scale to hypothetically hundreds of clients? And our hypothesis is that AI makes it more possible than ever before to maintain that pulse and deliver truly 6-star service to customers as you scale. And so this workflow is not only going to provide you kind of a framework for how we approach building solutions in general, but also how you can deliver great customer success and keep a pulse on it as you scale your organization. Okay, so I want to refer back to we did an episode with Wade Foster, the CEO of Zapier, several weeks ago. And he used this visual. And if you joined that episode, you have seen this visual, but I think it's really important to reiterate. So basically what this is it is showing the spectrum of processes in a business. And the idea is on the far left, you have what he calls determinism. And determinism is the traditional way that technology has worked to enable processes. Very simply, if X happens, do Y. If A happens, do B. It is deterministic. It's finite. It is black and white what happens. On the fully opposite side of the spectrum is inference. And inference is just another way of describing the power of AI and what AI is capable of. And the beauty of AI is I could go tell ChatGPT, hey, I want you to build a travel itinerary for me. And my rough preferences are I like adventures. I like staying in 4-star hotels, and I want it to be a place that I've never been before. And here are the places I've been. Just go build something. Deterministic technology could have never done that. AI is capable of doing that because it is more intelligent and the technology is probabilistic. The reason that this diagram I think is really helpful is while everyone has talked about that 2025 was the year of AI agents, I would actually argue that most of the solutions that companies should be thinking about building as it relates to AI right now are either something you would call an AI workflow or an agentic workflow. And what that basically means is if you have a process, let's say you have a 10-step process, the majority of that 10-step process is still going to use technology and automations in the way that they've always been used, which is in a deterministic fashion. If this happens, do this. And the idea is that as AI gets better, more and more of this intelligence, more and more of this new technology will be able to be sprinkled into steps of the process where it makes sense to use a technology that, for all intents and purposes, behaves like a junior employee who is really motivated, really smart, but can be forgetful and go off the rails sometimes. So that is why I think it's really important to understand this graphic, because I do not think it's realistic for people to think that you're just going to build AI products, you're going to tell it to do something, you're going to go grab coffee, grab lunch, come back to it, and it's done. Humans are still very much in the loop of this entire thing. Arman, anything you would add?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you ever catch yourself thinking about AI in this net new magical way, like if you ever start thinking, like talking about it in all the marketing terms that Sam Altman and Dario use, just like I think it's very important to just come back to earth and realize that, like, I think so many people fail at trying to implement AI because they immediately go all the way to the agent side here and they try to one-shot everything. And I think that it's really, really important to note that if I historically told you that you can get 5% improvements across your business by automating one step of the process using AI, that historically would be game-changing. But people always try to like automate the entire thing. And when AI can't do it in one shot, they think that it's a failure. And so that's the first thing. The other thing to note is, I think one helpful mental model that I always find myself going back to is, if I want to delegate some of my work to AI, how would I delegate this to a human? Right? And how junior is this human? And how much experience does this human have? What context does this human have? And using that as a framing for the thought process around how to delegate to an AI, whether it's a workflow AI, agentic workflow, or full agent, I think that's a really helpful way to think about it.
Yep, absolutely. And in a few minutes, we're going to talk about, as I go through this workflow of measuring customer health and kind of how do we gradually make it more powerful. As we go through those steps, I think thinking about the junior employee analogy is going to be really helpful. So let's keep going. Also, Arman, I can only see my slides. So if there's anything in the chat that people are asking,
let me quickly answer Josh Dance's question. I think it's a really good one. Like, what is the difference between agentic workflow and a full agent, right? A full agent is, I go into Claude Code, okay? And I tell Claude Code, I want you to build Facebook, okay? That's it. I just go in and I try to one-shot the entire task. Historically, building Facebook is actually many, many steps, right? But I can just trust AI to do the entire thing, for like come up with its own plan, follow its own steps, and figure it out, right? That would be a full agent. I would argue that we're not there yet, right? So what you can do is you can come up with, what are the steps that I know this agent is going to need to follow. I know that the first thing it's going to need to do is do research about what does it mean to build Facebook, right? So go do research and build a PRD, like a product requirements doc. That's step one. Then step two will always be, take that PRD and design the technical architecture for building Facebook. Step three is to go through step by step of that technical architecture doc in order to complete it, right? And so that would be like a loop over those things. And so the difference between these two things is, for the agentic workflow, I am telling the system, for step one, I always want you to do this. In that step, it is agentic. So in that step, the AI is able to go and do its own thing, whatever. But I will take the output of that step and give it to step two. And step two will always have the same objective, and so on. With an agent, again, it is creating its own plan. It is doing its own thing. Again, I think a helpful way to think about this is like an employee. So with a very senior employee, you can tell them, hey, let's say I'm a VC. I want you to go deploy $2 million of capital, right? In order to deploy $2 million of capital as a venture capitalist, you have to talk to hundreds of companies. You have to come up with theses around the market. You have to make a decision on where you want to invest, right? So there's many, many steps, but with a really senior partner at a VC firm, you can do that. But with more junior VCs, you're going to tell them, I need you to talk to 100 100 companies every month. I need you to write up memos for each of them. I need you to write me a thesis, and I need you to come to me with an exact document doing the diligence that we need for these companies, and then together we'll make a decision. And the difference between those things is I have a lot of structure with the junior person. I have very little structure with the senior person. That's how I think about the difference between agentic workflows and agents.
Love that. Cool. Let's keep it going.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, is that a picture of me?
Everyone is my co-founder, Arman. He's currently on safari in Kenya. So Arman always says this really good line, which I think is such a good framing for not just how we're going to go through this workflow, but how I think about building any sort of AI products or just honestly any products or solutions in general, which is, Arman, do you know what I'm about to say?
Yes, for sure.
You can say it.
How do you eat an elephant?
I don't know.
One bite at a time.
Yes. And I think when people are thinking about building new AI workflows or processes or products, they think about like the pie in the sky dream of what they want to build. So if we even just talk about what is the perfect pie in the sky dream for what a customer health and happiness system would look like at Tenex, here's what I would imagine. We have an application that ingests any information that relates to us interacting with our customers. So it pulls transcripts from Notion, from our Notion, because that's where we transcribe our calls. It pulls all tickets from Linear, which is where we project manage the software we're building for clients. It pulls messages from Slack. It pulls emails from Gmail. And then in a beautiful dashboard, it visualizes our interactions like average response time. It buckets, like it has a red light where there are certain clients named that are in the red, like they're high risk, yellow light, green light. And we have this beautiful dashboard that's visualized all of our internal data. And then even more valuable than this is this dashboard then can be talked to. And I can say to the dashboard, hey, based on what you're saying about client red, what is the next action we should take? And actually, can you take that action? Can you actually do that for us? That's the pie in the sky. And honestly, what I'm going to show you by the end isn't that far from there. And that is ultimately our goal for where we want to get to with 10X. But that is the elephant. And the only way to get to the elephant is take one bite at a time. So Arman always talks about this when we talk about product at 10X, is how you scope down to the most important, most atomic unit of what you're trying to build. How do you start there and then build up from there? And that is why we're going to eat the elephant one bite at a time. So this is bite number one. That's someone biting. So what is the first question that I'm trying to answer for our customers at 10X? Very simply, we create software for our customers, either AI software or traditional software. And so my number one question, as I'm thinking about customer success and are our account managers successfully managing our clients, is, are we shipping software like we promised? And so this gets into how I think about building out this AI solution that I'm talking about and where I want to start. The first level of building a solution is what I call reactive AI. And reactive AI very simply allows you to talk to your data. So before doing anything else, I want to scope down to the simplest way for me to talk to our data, and specifically our customer interaction or engagement data, so I can easily understand what is the state of the software that we're shipping for our clients. So I'm going to quickly demo that, and then we're going to build up from there. And what I'm going to play out for you, and this is what Arman was referring to before, the analogy is, there are basically 5 steps that I think about taking in any sort of process build, product build, whether it's AI or just traditional technology. The first is, how do we connect to the right sources? Meaning, how do we connect to the right information so we are pulling in the right data to learn the things we need to learn about our customer interactions? Second, how do we create a great prompt? And what a great prompt allows us to do is to get insights from that data. Third, test the workflow we're building. Again, the smallest version of the workflow. Fourth, iterate, because one of the expectations I always try to set with people is you are not going to one shot whatever the workflow or product you're building is. You're not going to one shot it. It is going to take iteration. The more complex or the bigger the thing you're building, the more iterations it will take to get it to work right, which is why you want to scope down to the simplest use case first. Once you iterate and get it to a great place, that is when you can add functionality. And think about this again, going back to Arman, think about this as a junior employee. The first thing you want to do with a junior employee is give them the right information. Give them the context that they need to operate within the rails that you've put them inside of. Then create a great prompt. What's a great prompt? It is what are the very explicit instructions you have given to a junior employee to do. Then test the AI, test the human. They go off, they do the work. They come back, the work isn't exactly done properly. That's where you iterate. Iteration, said differently for a human, is giving feedback. You go through this loop. Once the feedback has clearly worked, they're doing the work well, you add functionality, or in terms of human, you add responsibility because you've built trust. Anything you'd add here, Arman?
No, I'm just laughing at the said differently. But
That's an Alexism. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we start with the smallest unit here, which is talking to our data. And specifically for us, that is talking to Linear to understand, are we shipping software at the speed that we want to make clients happy? So let me get out of here first.
And the one thing that I do want to add as you're following this up is we have a few questions in the chat of like, is this a product that Tenex is building? Is this just a bunch of Zapier integrations? Like, this is like we are live building this for our own company. Like everything that Alex is showing you, we are building for ourselves. We already have a lot of it built for ourselves, but we're walking you through how we think about building this, because right now we've done it for client success and client support and all that. But this is how we do it for every part of our company. And the goal is that by the end of this, not only will you be able to literally copy and paste this tool for yourselves, and I know that there are a bunch of companies that have this exact product basically that we're building on top of Zapier for ourselves. They have this, but they charge a bunch of money. You guys will be able to basically just copy and paste this yourselves. That's the first thing that I think is really great. But also, you'll be able to identify other opportunities in your company and likewise build solutions to them.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so the first thing I want to do, again, is talk to my data. And to us, for me, the most important data that we can have access to is effectively our project management board, which, because we're building software, is Linear. I want to be able to ask Linear questions. And I really would love to get like a report that just tells me, how are we moving along with every client? And what are risks that you would dig into to learn more about? And just think about this in context. Let's assume in the future we have 100 clients and we have 100 different Linear boards. It is not going to be realistic for Arman or I to get in the weeds or look at every individual client's Linear board, but we want to make sure we are pushing forward the work we're doing with clients just as effectively as when we had one customer. And so where I always start, again, is I connect to the right source. And so in Linear, let me just find it here. In Claude, and ChatGPT has the same thing. These companies have connectors. Arman, I laugh, doesn't like these things because connectors are basically just MCP. MCP, from Arman's point of view, is just a glorified version of APIs. But all this to say that there are these connections that ChatGPT and Claude have created to talk to your applications. Linear is one of them. Linear also is a connector in ChatGPT. So what I'm going through is interchangeable. So once I've made the connection to Linear, that means now I can access data that we have around project management with our customers. Then the next thing that I always do is I create a great prompt. And people have all these formulas for what is a great prompt. My general formula is this. If I'm talking to a junior employee, how do I increase the odds of them comprehending what I'm saying so that there isn't error because things got lost in translation? And how do I treat getting a prompt in the same way? So what I basically said here is I wanted to create a prompt that helps me understand how much software we're shipping for clients and how many story points we've completed this month for each client. I want the output to be anonymized since I'm showing this to a group of people, create a prompt that I can feed to Sonnet 4.5 that using the linear connector will allow me to understand the state of each customer's linear board, how fast or much we're shipping, and how many story points we've completed this month. And just for context, because people may not know what story points are just a way we measure how much output we are creating for a client, how much software we're actually building for a client. And then I said the linear boards I'll want to monitor are attached. This is a really small, but like I think is one of the underrated things that LLMs have made super easy is there's no easy way for me in linear to like copy the name of all of our different boards and paste it in. And so now I just take screenshots, and LLMs are incredible at taking screenshots and turning it into text. So I just took screenshots of all of our boards, attached it into Claude, and it turned that into a text list. So that is the prompt that I create. And then I take the output of that prompt and I just, in a different chat, feed it back to the LLM. So let me just go here. So basically what the output was, and I'm not scrolling up because it actually has the names of our clients, but basically it gave this really thoughtful prompt for telling Claude how it wants to use Claude to generate a report by accessing our linear data. So what are the output requirements? Anonymization, report format, based on the number of story points we create for a client, mark them as green, like high velocity, yellow, medium velocity, or red, low velocity. After that, add the average story points per client, top 3 performing clients, additional insights, flag any clients with 0 activity this month, note if any clients have large backlogs, identify any patterns. And then what that actually results in is this is the output of the prompt that I gave. So this is basically our linear customer board. We're talking with the data by customer. It shares how many issues have we completed, what is each task that we've done for each client by client, what is the activity level, what is the current project that we're working on, what are the key themes of each project, and then it also will share what are potential issues that we should be flagging. And so like what I can look at here is there are certain companies that have issues that they have not reviewed our work that we've done for them in a long time. And so thinking about how do you actually turn this into action, what I'm trying to understand here is where are their bottlenecks? Where are we getting slowed down? And now that I have this at scale, now I can zoom into who are the 2 to 4 clients where things are getting stuck in a certain part of the process. Now I can go into Slack, ask the specific technical strategist, hey, what's happening here? And I've been able to focus my time on the things that actually matter because creating this integration allowed me to scale to hundreds of clients, but focus down on who are the few that I actually need to care about right now. So that is the first example of talking to your data and again, creating a connection with whatever is your source of truth, like for customer interactions. And the one thing I'll say, going back to the slide that I had about start small, test, iterate, and then increase complexity. The way I would increase complexity here is we started with linear, because in my mind, linear is the source of truth for us is of how much work are we actually doing. But then the next way to add complexity here is not just to do things like make the AI more proactive, have it take action, but also make it multi-threaded. And when I say multi-threaded, get other data inputs that work into understanding our customer health. So not just linear, but what is our average response time in Slack with our customers? How many Slack messages have we had with them? Take a look at our Notion meeting transcripts with them. Are there any signals you got from there? And that's what we're going to go into in a minute. I'm going to pause there, see if there are any questions before we kind of dial up what this workflow looks like as we start introducing other variables.
One thing that I want to highlight here as well, as we're waiting for questions to come in the chat, is that we get a lot of questions about like, oh, like I'm using ChatGPT. What's next? Right? Like I'm using Claude. What's next?
Arman, you're pretty frozen right now.
Oh. Let me hotspot.
Well, it's all good. We'll keep going and Arman will work on his Wi-Fi. But, so any questions on this integration between Claude and Linear before we kind of ramp up to making the workflow not only multi-threaded, but also more proactive and actually be able to take action on these insights? Josh said, where do you go to view the report? So in this example, I am going to Claude to view the report. And typically, again, like Claude and GPT, I use them interchangeably right now. They're kind of my daily drivers. So I just always have it open. In GPT, there is the ability, and this takes things from, let me share my deck again, because I think this is an important point, is 1 second, screen. Okay. So going back to the different levels of creating AI products or processes, there's level 1 is reactive AI, which is what we just built. You talk to your AI and you ask it for insights, but you are pushing the AI to do something. Level 2 is proactive AI. And that is the idea that AI works in the background based on a schedule or some trigger that you've dictated to it. And so I don't know if they have this with Claude. It may have been added in with skills, but with GPT, there's a way to add in recurring jobs. So if we ran the same exact flow where we're connected with Linear and we have this report run in Linear, we can run it as a daily job where every day a chat is created in GPT that delivers this report based on the last day or week's activity within Linear. So to answer your question, that's how it would currently be done. If you use other tools like Zapier, which we're going to go to in a minute, then you can have the output happen via email, via Slack. You have more flexibility than building kind of this workflow I just shared within GPT or Claude. To Mark's question, Linear is, think of it as like Airtable or Monday.com. It's a project management tool, but specifically focused on engineers and product managers. Arman, you were going to add something before.
Yeah. So everyone can hear me, right? I'm
Yep.
clear again.
Yep. You're good.
Okay. So one thing that I just want to highlight is we get questions a lot from clients, companies, everybody, that they basically say, okay, I'm using ChatGPT, I'm using Claude. What's next? Like, I'm doing this and I'm really good at it. Like, what is the next level? And I think that there absolutely are next levels, but there's always more opportunity to get out of ChatGPT and Claude. And I think one way to think about it is that traditionally, what Alex just showed would really only be done by like a full-time person. Like that would think about before AI, which like literally is hard for me to wrap my head around, but like before AI, a person would have to go through this like linear system, which is basically like, it's a giant project management system. They would have to go through the project management system. And they would need to go through client by client, column by client, column, task by task. And they would need to copy and paste. Okay, this was done. This was not done. Okay, for each client, how are they feeling? Let me look at the Slack. This would be a day-long job. It would be incredibly expensive. And so the only companies that would be able to actually afford having a message like this sent to the co-founders of the business every day, you'd have to be gigantic. But literally for the first time in history, a company like Tenex and a company like of any size, if you have $20 a month, you can afford to have this message sent to you. And I think that is what is incredible here, is that you're able to do things that traditionally only gigantic companies would be able to do just by using ChatGPT. And so I always think that there's more opportunity. And then we'll see in level 2 that it's even better. So Alex, I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah. So level 2, we're going to ramp this up a lot. And so we're going to do 2 things. One is we're going to make this proactive so that this customer health report is generated with a level of frequency that we want. From my perspective, Arman and I would want this weekly to really keep a good pulse on the business on a weekly basis. And we're going to make it multi-threaded. So when I think about it, going back to what I was saying before, there are 3 or 4 data sources that together give us a great picture of what is the directional health of a customer, given what they're saying, how they're saying it, and how we are pushing forward the projects that we're working on for them. And so my next goal here with proactive AI is to have something running in the background with a level of frequency and pulling in all of the data sources that tell us more about our customers. So let me keep this going. So we had the first bite of the elephant. Are we shipping software where we like we promised by through Claude, setting up the linear connector, getting a great prompt, asking it for a great report. In that report, having it point out what are specific clients where there's a backlog of PRs in review so that I can reach out or Arman can reach out to our technical strategist and say, hey, why is so-and-so client not pushing forward the work that we're giving them, and uncover some bottleneck there. Next step is give me this insight without being asked. And that is where we get into proactive AI. And so for this, I'm using Zapier. And basically when I use Zapier, you can basically assume I am building something that is code on the back end, but all the code has been abstracted away for someone like me that is not an engineer. So if you have access to engineers, you could build what I am building, or you could use Zapier and do it yourself as a non-technical person. And I'm sure Arman could give you several ideas for, as an engineer, how you would build this. So let me walk you through my process for making this multi-threaded proactive AI with Zapier. So let me share this first. Stop sharing. Presentation. Nope.
As you're pulling this up, I want to mention a question that we've seen a few times in the chat. Like, folks are asking things like, will this work with Jira? Will this work with Asana? These ideas that we're presenting here are foundational to AI development in business. So like level 1, you can ask AI questions about your data. Level 2, Alex is going to walk through, like AI will proactively tell you things about your data. These levels, these systems, these frameworks work regardless of where your data is, what your data is, right? Like right now, we're just talking about this one specific use case, but it can work, like even this specific use case can work with Linear, Asana, Jira, and so on. But they can also work with your ERP and CRM, and they can also work with your Slack, and they can also work with your email and your calendar. And so really, like I think it's important to dig into an example to see the power and the fire, but definitely pull out, zoom out, and think about like where else can this apply? And the answer is probably yes.
Yep, absolutely. So this, again, where I start with everything is with giving the right information, which I already set up in Zapier, which you'll see in a second, and creating a great prompt. And generally, like you can have Zapier, and we'll show it in a second, create the prompt for you. I've always just found that I feel the most comfort with like a GPT 5.1 or a Sonnet 4.5 creating the prompt, because oftentimes like in Zapier or any of these tools, they are just using those models to create the prompt as it is. So basically here, I fed exactly what I wanted created that I described to you all. Think hard and create an amazing prompt I can feed to Zapier. I wanted to ingest a bunch of signals from client interactions and use that to create a weekly comprehensive client health report that provides overall client health as well as deep insights client by client. I wanted to take liberties to make this as specific, deep, and actionable as possible, but there are things I think should be included. By client, customer health score, key signals, key quotes, areas for concern, potential issues, number of Slack interactions, average Slack response time, number of story points completed, blah, 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 blah. I fired this prompt off and then I was like, oh, damn, I also wanted Notion. So then I updated the prompt while it was mid-thinking and said, oh, I also wanted to pull insights, not just from Slack and Linear, but also call transcripts from Notion. And so then what it ended up giving me was this just like really in-depth prompt for scoring clients based on the inputs. And then the output format is the overall summary. So average client health score, count of clients by status, short narrative summary, key emerging risks, key positive trends. Again, all of this, just for context, would have never been possible pre-AI, because this is where true intelligence is being layered on top of the data that we're giving it. And then we have a client by client breakdown. So for each client, health score, status light, renewal churn risk, expansion potential, one-line summary, key signals this week, key quotes, Slack activity, linear progress, call insights for every single client. So now let me go to the next, how that actually shows up in Zapier. So let me share this step. So we're in Zapier now. There's the agent builder, which is functionality in Zapier. And what I basically did is I fed the prompt to Zapier in Agent Builder. And as you can see, the trigger says on demand right now. I just did that so we could run this agent if we wanted to right now. But obviously, you can also do it. As you can see, you can schedule by Zapier. You could have it do every week, choose value. I would want it Mondays at 8 a.m. so that Arman and I can get it when we get to the office first day of the week. And now that is the recurring trigger. So I'm not going to run it now because it's going to take time, but I'm going to show you what the output looks like. So let me go over here. So what I basically did is we also set it up so that it emails to us, so that it would send us emails and also our core team a Slack message with what weekly customer sentiment looks like. And so this is basically what we're sent. We have the executive summary, which has top 3 risks. So one client who's working on field rep testing, another one who's working on an eBay integration, another one who's dealing with performance delays, the top 3 opportunities. So what are actual opportunities for how we can wow clients over the next week? What we then have is client by client breakdown. So client A, and this is ordered by risk. So health score 6 out of 10, churn risk medium, trending down. So that is not a good sign. So like this is something that Arman and I would probably pull the technical strategist in to go through this breakdown and be like, tell us where the concern that's created in this report is wrong. Where is it right? What are the actions we're taking to have this trend back up and get this from a red to a yellow? And so then it also shares immediate actions required, daily check-ins until the field rep testing is done, escalate location issues to senior engineering, prepare contingency plan if testing is delayed. And this goes through with every single client, ingesting Slack, ingesting Linear, and ingesting our Notion call transcripts, all to work together this full picture of how we're doing with clients. Arman, anything you would add?
Yeah, I mean, I just, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record. I still think it's insane that, like, historically, the president, and Alex and I talk about this all the time, like, there's this thing called the presidential daily brief, right? Every single day, the president wakes up and they get a huge, like, stack of papers, and it is structured exactly how the president wants, with all the top news, all the things that they need to know. So they wake up, they read this presidential daily brief. This is a thing since I forget which president started it. Once I heard about that, I was like, that would be incredible to get that, right? And there are a ton of newsletters, right? Like we all know them, like Morning Brew and all the other ones. And you can wake up and you can read those. But what if you could have your own, right? And I think that it's incredible that basically what Alex just built is that for customers, right? For the customer success. And Deuce has a question here about like, what is, that's Linear and call transcripts, but like, can you include email and CRM? The answer is yes. Like, Daniel put a list of all the apps from Zapier. You can absolutely add those other data sources as well. And then Doug asked, how is it assigning churn risk and a health score? Did you tell it what the formula would be? And I believe that, that Alex, you did have information on how to assign that client risk.
Yep.
And the entire structure of the response, like everything is in that prompt. So you can make this completely custom to what you want it to be for customer success, for your sales pipeline, for every part of your company. You can have this happen.
Yeah. So what I would say for the churn risk question, because this is a really good one, in a perfect world, the way we will ultimately use this and associate churn risk is do a look back on all previous clients who churned and what were the signals that we saw from that client, whether it was things they said on calls, what the average number of touch points were over Slack, what linear momentum, like in terms of number of issues resolved or number of story points complete. And that will become, like, basically those traits will become the bar of what creates churn risk for us. What I did here is I basically gave it conservative estimates of what I would consider high, middle, and low risk. But I also said, use your best judgment. So I said, like, if we in the last week have done more than 50 story points worth of work, that is low churn risk. If we've done between 25 and 50, that's medium churn risk. And if we've done less than 25, that's high churn risk. And I basically did that for churn. I did that for Slack, and I did that for call transcripts. And like I said, it was directional, but you would also be surprised how good these models are at just like directionally figuring out what signals lead to an increased risk of churn. But what I did make sure of here is, again, this is, for me, what's most important here is that it's directional. I would rather there be false positives than false negatives. And so I would rather it call out too many clients that are high risk of churn and we go and check in on them than not call out enough. And so that was how I structured that prompt. Someone else had a question about this. Did you tell? Yeah. So the whole churn risk thing I would also say is, again, if I wanted to also specify it further, I would go back to typically ChatGPT or Claude, and I would say, this is the type of business we have. This is what we deliver them. These are the systems by which we engage with our clients. Can you create a list of signals that would put someone into a high, middle, or low churn risk bucket? And I would use that in the instructions for Zapier. And as we get more actual information over time, I would just finagle the instructions to be more accurate to the real data that we have.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's helpful.
One thing that I think is interesting is, like, I would recommend testing more guidance and less guidance. And so I would actually recommend testing. And Alex, I don't know if we've done this, but we should do it as well. Like, almost giving no guidance on what defines churn risk, but saying, I want you to be a little extra conservative. Because I think that AI tools, part of what's incredible about them, I always call them warm-blooded, right? Like,
yep,
AI is warm-blooded. And there's this, within that warm-bloodedness is the fact that you can actually sometimes AI will tell you things and you're like, wow, I didn't catch that. Like, I would not have considered this signal to be, like, I didn't consider that the fact that we're not responding in 30 minutes to our clients to be a churn risk, but the AI is, and maybe that's actually a good thing to flag, right? And so I think that there's value in that. And so, like Alex said, I think testing more guidance, less guidance, different types of guidance, different types of conservatism within that guidance, I think is a part of the process.
Yep, absolutely. So I want to bring this to like the final part of the step. So you saw the last output, which is basically that is the customer health report that organized clients by churn risk based on what it deems to be different risk factors of not enough kind of like product being pushed based on our linear board, not enough interaction or fast enough interaction based on Slack, any negative signals or positive signals in our Notion meeting transcripts. The final piece of this, and let me just pull up the slide again, is so we've had 2 bites of the elephant. The third bite, which is like what Arman and I would ask ourselves is like, okay, we have a sense of, are we shipping software like we promised by having this integration between Linear and Claude and asking the data questions that helped us understand, like, oh, there's a backlog of PRs for review that a client hasn't reviewed. Great. That leads us to a conversation. Then we were like, we want a higher fidelity and proactive AI. So this job runs on a weekly basis on Mondays, and it ingests information from 4 different sources and works it together in a report, which you saw what the final report looks like. And to someone's question, you can always improve the inputs of what is high, middle, or low churn risk based on you getting information in the business and feeding those insights back into the instructions for the agent. The final is take action. So don't just give me insights, but take action on those insights. And so I'll just quickly show
Where'd you get these photos?
I looked up open mouth on Google. I asked myself, what would make people smile in their office chair and what relates back to taking one bite at a time of the elephant?
Love it.
Yep. Yeah, my brain is crazy. So then the final piece here is active AI. And so what we wanted to do is we had this report. This report tells us what are the action items that we want the AI to take well, how can it help us with those action items? And so just to quickly share my screen again, let me go back to Zapier. Please hold. Where is it?
As I was pulling that up, if anyone has questions, please continue to put them into the chat. It's really helpful for us to guide the conversation in the way that you all want, and to make sure this is super useful for everybody.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to show you the build of this in Zapier so that you can do this yourself. So let me just share my screen of Zapier, and we're going to do this. So basically, the way I wanted to set this up is every time the weekly sentiment report runs. So every time, just again, using this report runs that was created from that Zapier agent that we built that ingests all of the information, creates a breakdown, etc. I want us to get drafts of emails that our customer success people can send to clients based on the action items that it's detailed. So I'm going to show basically what the end instructions it created are for the agent, but I actually want us to just go through the flow quickly together. So basically, it created instructions of when the weekly customer sentiment insight agent completes its analysis, retrieve the generated action items and recommendations from its output, call the weekly customer sentiment insights agent to get the latest customer sentiment data and action items, parse through the action items and recommendations provided by the analysis. For each action item, create a personalized email draft that account managers can send to clients. It creates the draft in Gmail. Structure each email draft to include professional subject line, personalized greeting, context about the sentiment insight that triggered the recommendation, specific action or solution being proposed, a clear call to action for next steps, professional closing, and then save all email drafts in a format that account managers can easily access and customize before sending. The final goal is transform customer sentiment insights into actionable, ready-to-send email drafts that account managers can use to proactively address client needs and improve customer relationships. And so very simply, how I created this is I basically said here, I have a weekly, what is it called? Weekly customer sentiment insights agent on Zapier. I want you to, every time that agent runs, I want a new agent to draft emails that directly relate to the action items that you called out in the report. And I want these drafts to be actionable, thoughtful, and specific / customized so that a technical strategist at my company can send it off to the customer with minimal edits. And then you start building. And what's nice about these tools like Zapier or Lindy or N8N or Gumloop now is they have these agent builders. So it's basically like you're in a ChatGPT or Claude-esque experience, but it is specified to their platform. So it's actually calling tools. And so what it basically did is it built the instructions here, and then it's going to ultimately put the tools it needs access to in the instructions. And those tools are going to be, it needs access to Gmail. So it's going to ask me for access to Gmail. It also is going to ask for access to the weekly sentiment insights report. So the other agent that I created in Zapier, because that's where it's going to ingest context from to draft these emails. And it will set up, as you can see, it's setting up a webhook, which is basically, it is creating a trigger where when the weekly sentiment insights agent fires off, it is going to trigger this agent. So as you can see, the tools this agent can use are the sentiment-driven email drafts. When the weekly customer sentiment insights agent completes its analysis and generate a report, automatically trigger this workflow. So basically, this starts when the other agent finishes, and then it delivers emails as drafts in our inbox related to those action items. Any questions on this?
We were just getting advice to use Yap to text.
Yep, we agree. We actually took a poll of the team on underhyped and overhyped things in AI right now, and one of our team members said that Yap to text is very underhyped. And even Ryan Carson, who we had on a previous episode of Human in the Loop, he basically Yap to text everything as an engineer, which I agree with all this, but I would say in an office environment that we're in, it would be pure chaos if everyone was yapping to text. Daniel Green, do your clients have KPIs for AI use? What metrics are they looking at to judge or evaluate success? Arman, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like their business is business, right? Like when a successful business makes more money than it spends, very simply. People want to be happy. People want to work less and make more money. Like there are facts of nature that will always be the case. And I don't think that AI changes that. And so I think that companies still have their own success metrics that they've historically had. And whether you use EOS or OKRs or whatever, like a company has their goals. If we're successful as Tenex in helping companies adopt AI, but also other people and their own companies when they're trying to adopt AI, they will know when they're successful because that initiative will drive the company closer to the goals. And they'll know they're not successful if they're just like saying the word AI a lot and it doesn't impact the goals.
Two quick things. One is I want to answer Kat's question, and then Arman, something for you to think about as I answer it is, if I gave you this prompt to like build a customer health and happiness monitor for the business, how would you go about doing it, roughly speaking? Given you're an engineer and you know how to do this technically, what would be like, how would you think about building this? And would it be different from how I thought about setting this up? So just something to think about. Kat, to your question, why wouldn't you want to create one agent to create the report and email it? Is it just to try and keep workflows as simple as possible? The answer here is in Zapier, when you chat with the agent. So like when I chat with the agent here, just to give you a quick example, let's just share my screen one more time quickly. Here. So when you chat with the agent, you can make changes. And when it makes changes to the entire instruction of that agent. So it changes the system prompt for that agent. And so my whole
just to jump in, like this agent that you're chatting with is an agent building agent. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So this is like Zapier, basically, like historically with Zapier, you can go in and you can like click to build these workflows, but then they introduced their own Zapier agent that allows you to build and edit the workflows. And so that's the one that Alex is messing around with right now.
Exactly. And I don't know if I'm doing this subliminally because Arman has always thought about doing this like with chats whether it's in different terminals with Claude Code or different chats with GPT. But it's like whenever I'm working on a net new thing, I don't want to pollute the previous thing that I've worked on. And so my fear is if I worked on this email generator within the weekly customer sentiment insights one, and I ask the agent building agent to make a change, my fear is it makes a change to the initial agent that not only screws up the email generator, but it also screws up the report generator. And so now I have nothing that works versus containing kind of the poison to this second flow.
Yeah. So to answer your question, like let's say I was to build this from scratch, if I'm being super honest, I would just use something like Zapier, right? And earlier we had a question about like why Zapier, and there's Zapier, there's N8N, there's Make, there's all these different things. Currently, my read is that Zapier is the most robust. It's just been around for way longer, so the connections are great. Their team is building with AI first in mind. Like we've just used all the products and we like it the best. We think it's the most robust. For this use case, this is what I would do. What we're thinking about internally, and again, these are real use cases, like Alex and I on Monday will get that message in Slack. Like this is actually what we use internally. But we're also thinking about like, what does it look like to build an internal operating system for Tenex that not only surfaces these insights, but even more, right? And so I think if we were to make it more robust, what you would do is you would think about it the same exact way that you did, right? Where it's like, what is all the data? What are all the different triggers? What is the information that we need? And then what do you want to do with it? Well, you want to be able to talk to it. You want to be able to ask questions, and you want to be able to get some insights. And those insights are going to pull from certain data, and they're going to be structured in a certain way. And so it would literally be structured the same exact way. We would think about it the same exact way. What custom building would give you is just a little bit more, or a lot bit more customization, but it also comes with some negatives, right? Where you need to, it's just a lot more work up front, honestly.
And there's maintenance you have to do.
Maintenance,
like Zapier, like they are doing all the maintenance on the back end. So yeah, there's a ton of trade-offs. The last question, because I know we're at time, is just to answer, Mark, your question. Can you show us the production Zap that you made and walk us through the actions? Yes. The cool thing about Zapier is after you build an agent or an automation, you can actually share it for people to like just customize on top of. So when we send the post recording email, we'll include links to both the report generator and to the email generator that connects to the report, so that you can, again, it's going to take some finagling to connect the right data sources for you and your customers, but it's at least probably 75% of the work is there for you to build on top of. Sweet. I think that is it. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you all, as always, for joining the show. And we will catch you next week on Human in the Loop. And feel free to email us if you have any questions at all. Alex@tenex.co, Arman@tenex.co. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.